Hi guys, my name is Anna. Welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to use fondant and make bas-relief decorations and add wafer paper flowers to your cake design. So let's begin. So first thing what we need is we need our fondant, and I use this delphinium blue by Wilton color to make the slight baby blue shade. And to make my bas-relief and to make my decorations, I usually take my fondant out and leave it on the side to dry for at least 15-20 minutes, because I want this texture to be not smooth and not perfect in a way. So I'm going to take a few pieces like this, leave it on my table. Also, to make my bas-relief and to make my impressions, I'm going to use this mold. This is First Impression Molds Flower Set number 2, I believe. And I will put all the links down below to all the tools I use. And another thing I'm going to use is regular rubber stamp. I never use it for anything else except for my cakes. This is by this brand, and I will find something similar and put a link down below. So this is we are going to use to add our texture. So here's a few of my pieces, and I will show you how to make this texture on just a basic cake board, but the same method would apply for your cake. If you're working on a buttercream cake or a ganache cake, you should have no problem applying this technique. So I'm going to take my piece of fondant, the softer one, and take my cornstarch, because to create this texture and to make it more textural and interesting, you need to use quite a lot of cornstarch. So I'm going to apply on my table, on my piece of fondant, and then I will take another piece. And you can see that I'm applying decent amount of cornstarch in between these layers to make them separate when we are going to roll this out, like this. And then I will take my rolling pin and roll it out. So you can turn this, you can misplace this and bring it back together. And you can see, because we applied cornstarch, I now have all these interesting layers over here, and I will cut this piece to bring under, fix any holes I have. So I'm trying to make one even piece, but I need this piece to be round to cover my board. So that's what I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to take a little bit of grease gun just to make my board sticky. If you're working on a cake, you can spray with a little bit of water, or if you're applying on a buttercream, you don't need to apply anything. So here's my board sticky, and I'm going to transfer my fondant, somehow piece it together. And just take a cake smoother and remove as much air bubbles as I can to make it smooth. So here's my part of the board, and I will find a few different pieces to put here and bring them together. I'm going to roll out another piece. You can see that here some of the pieces are overlapped. I can either use my knife and gently pull one piece towards another piece to make it smooth, or I can use my smoother and just press it on top and bring them all together. So now I have my board here, and you can see I keep all my pieces without the bag. And I have even thickness coverage, but I still have all these textures. And I'm trying to think where I want my bas-relief to go. And I think that it will go somewhere here, maybe. Like, I like this part, so I don't want to cover this up. So maybe something like here and maybe here. So this part will be like this part will be my bas-relief that I will apply on top, so I'm not worrying about this texture. And then when my fondant is still soft and I know that my bas-relief will go here, everything is just an approximation. I will take my stamp and see where I want to go. So I want to cover this big spot with my stamp. I'm going to place it on top and press down, and you can do the same to your cake when your fondant is still soft. So now I have my impression, and maybe I can put another part somewhere in here, maybe here on the side. So you don't need to apply a lot of pressure. If your fondant is fresh, you can stamp your fondant using different techniques. The only thing I prefer is to use a rubber stamp, not the soft silicone one, because the rubber stamp is a little bit thicker and will give you more indentation and more visual interest. So now I will set it aside to dry for maybe at least 30 minutes, because we need this fondant to be a little bit drier, and we'll start working on our wafer paper flowers that we are going to assemble on top. And to make my wafer paper flowers, I'm going to use craft punch. This is a hydrangea punch. I prefer to use this one because it gives me a lot of variations. And if you watched my videos before, you know that I use this punch a lot, and I will put a link down below and then up top for another tutorial how you can make gold flowers using this craft punch. I'm going to use two colors, powder pearl and this forget me not by Crystal Colors, because I think this color complements my fondant and the color of my fondant very well, so I'm going to use this together. Fluffy brush, but tiny fluffy brush, to apply our dusts. And I will use my mini steamer to fix the color, but I'll show you what I mean. Here I will cut my wafer paper in half, and I will make half of my flowers in pearl and half in blue. So first thing, to color my wafer paper in pearl. So I will put my wafer paper shiny side up and apply this pearl dust onto my surface. You can airbrush your wafer paper. For me, this way is easier. So now you see that I have beautiful pearlescent wafer paper. So here's my first one. I will take the excess powder out, and then I will lightly steam to fix the color. You can see it's curly a little bit, but it will drop and become flat when it dries. And I will set it aside for a second and do the same technique onto my blue. So shiny side up, a little bit of petal dust. This is forget-me-not blue. And I'm using the same brush because I don't mind touch of pearl color onto my blue flowers. Now that I have my pearl wafer paper and I have my blue wafer paper, I'm going to use my craft punch and punch few designs. So the same, if I want to add a little bit more texture and movement to my flowers, so I will take my floral pad, the regular one we're using always for our wafer paper, place flowers on a floral pad, and if you're in a very dry climate, you can use a touch of steam just to give them some level of moisture so they won't break on you. And if you're in a humid climate, you can just press them down and shape without any moisture. So I will make a few dozens of these flowers, and you can totally make these flowers in advance and just keep them in a bag and then assemble on a cake when you need them. So now we have our flowers ready. I place them in this container separated by size. And also this is how I have them in a bag like this, so you can definitely make them in advance. And I have my board. It's already relatively dry but still soft, so if you're going to put it on a cake, it will take you maybe 20 minutes. And my fondant, it starts to dry here as well. So that's what I need to make my bas-relief. You can see it's already drying. And to make my bas-relief, I will need a little bit of water and my mold. So this is again first impression molds flower set number 2 and cornstarch. So I'm going to take a decent amount of cornstarch and apply onto my mold. Then I'm going to take much smaller that I think I need and press it down into my mold somewhere here in the middle. You can see I'm not trying to fill out my mold. I need to make it as thin as possible but still manageable. If your fondant is too soft or like extremely fresh, what you can do is you can add a little bit of Tyler powder, or you can mix your fondant with gum paste and create this type of decorations. But what I'm looking for is to create pieces and not whole mold impressions. Usually a decent amount of cornstarch and leave your fondant out to dry for a moment helps to do this. And when you start working with your molds, you will find that some pieces you love more and some impressions you like more and some less, and then you can adjust to your liking. I know that here this mold is a little bit deeper, and I'll show you what I can get from this side here, and I will take another piece and press it down. And you can see when I'm removing my mold, I'm turning this upside down and gently pulling my pieces. Now I have enough pieces to start. And again, I know that my decorations will go somewhere in this area, so I will probably start with this angle. I usually prefer to start with thin piece, small one. So I'm applying a thin layer of water on the back side to make it sticky. And I'm going to place it somewhere in here and gently press it down. Then I'm going to take my Dresden tool and just melt these pieces together. So I wanted them to look like one cohesive piece decoration. And another piece. And I will continue assembling my flowers on this board. And you can see, because we left our fondant to dry for a moment before applying this technique, I can rub my pieces into my board without disturbing the pattern. And it looks like these pieces are growing from my board or my cake. So I will make a few more pieces to continue working on this cake or on this design. But basically what I'm trying to achieve is to give some movement for the eye to follow. So probably a few pieces will go here and maybe a few pieces here. And I'll show you when it's done. Now I have my board here, so you can see the design. Don't be afraid to place a few pieces like separate here on its own and leave some empty places like I have here, because that's what makes it interesting and different. Now is my favorite step is to add our Wafer Paper Flowers and to make this design cohesive and even more beautiful. First, what I'm going to do, I want to emphasize a little bit this pattern and just like make it look a little bit more textural. So I'm going to take my brush with the remaining of petal dust, with blue petal dust, and gently brush on top. You can see it brings all the textures here and on top of my bas-relief. So you can see now it looks even more dimensional. And you can do the same technique and add just a touch of gold or silver, whatever suits your design. And the last step, I'm going to take my piping gel. So I have here just a regular piping gel and my flowers, and I'm going to place them somewhere where I need to hide my imperfections, or places maybe I don't like as much. I'm going to dip my flower into a piping gel, just a small amount, and place it somewhere I wanted to make it more special. And I'm going to alternate colors and sizes, so it gives me more movement. So a few flowers here, few in different spots. This method or this technique is beautiful, especially if you're going to assembling your cake at the venue, like last minute after delivery or something, and you have any issues, you poked a hole, or you have some like cornstarch or any marks, you can place a flower on top of that and cover up all the places you do not like. I usually prefer to use smaller flowers because I think they fit the design better, but of course it's up to you. Something like this, and I will add a few small white flowers. And you can see all the textures and beautiful flowers I have here, and I hope you're going to make it. You can see it's so dimensional and so beautiful and so easy to make. Thank you so much for joining me this week and watching this tutorial. If you liked it, give me a like for the YouTube algorithm, you know how it works, and subscribe to my channel, more tutorials to come. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye bye.